All right, we're meeting today to determine the primary need for Blacksburg Middle School. So I have handed you 3 data for you to take a look at, and I gave it to you earlier this afternoon for you to look over. And today's whole agenda is going to be as follows. Right now I'm reviewing the agenda. The goal for this meeting on the first meeting was to improve literacy across Blacksburg Middle School. That was our first primary need that we assessed. But today we're going to come to a final determination if literacy is definitely something that we need to work on. Our focus is, what do we want each student to learn? How will we know when each student has learned it? And how will we respond when a student experiences difficulty in learning? So the first step is, what do we want each student to learn? We need to know first, what standards are we covering? Are we all on the same page in content areas? So 7th grade, if there's a 7th grade ELA class, if there's 2 of them, they need to be doing the same thing. And so that's very important to think about that way. Maybe the same assessments. How will we know when each student has learned it? Well, that's assessing students, formative and summative assessments. How will we respond when a student experiences difficulty in learning? That's when we intervene and decide, what do we need to do to help that individual student or the individual students of the class to gain a better knowledge of what we are teaching in the class. Then we're going to look at analyzing data. That's what we're getting ready to do. The 3 data that I have given to you. We're going to determine what the most pressing need is, and then I'll make some closing remarks. So what we're going to do right now is going to go ahead and take a look at this data. I've given you data from STAR testing, and that is our assessments that we give throughout the school year. And we can assess students now, mid-year, and then the end of the year to kind of see if our students are growing or not. So we know that we give each student an opportunity to set a goal, and if they reach the goal, that is wonderful. We're all about complimenting them and encouraging them and motivating them to do better. And hopefully they will all attain the goal. And that has to do with high expectations. They need to have high expectations within themselves. And we need to set those high expectations for them to reach them. Also, we have SC Ready scores, which is our standardized testing that we do at the end of the year. And now in SC Ready, we're actually grading you on ELA and math, but we're looking just at ELA today. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on. And then we're going to look at the poverty level at Blacksburg Middle School. And if you look at the poverty level chart, we totally get our numbers from free and reduced lunch. So that's how we determine poverty at Blacksburg Middle School, is by seeing how many students on free lunch, how many students on reduced lunch, and then we take that amount of students and divide it into the total amount of students. So let's start looking at STAR reading data to start off with. This screening was in the fall, so it was from September 5th to September 15th of this year. And looking at this, a good way to put it is, I don't think that our students are probably doing as well as they should. Now, one of the things we got to take into consideration is that this is the first test of the year, so they've had the summer off, and they've had time to kind of rest their brains and not be in school mode for a few months. And so when they come back, we're probably not expecting them to be at high levels right now, unless they maybe read all summer. Maybe they were in a reading program, or maybe they were one of these people who just likes to study all summer, which is not very many of them. But when they do, you might see an improvement from last year to this year. Or maybe they had a bad day last year when they took their last STAR testing. And so we got to take all that in consideration. So when we look at this, we're looking at all grade levels, 6th through 8th grade. And so this is recent. So this is your 6th graders now, your 7th graders now, and your 8th graders now. And we, of course, we have Mr. Broom here that's from 8th grade ELA. Ms. Blanton is from 7th grade ELA. Ms. Harrison is from 6th grade math, and Ms. Reimer is from 6th grade ELA. So we have a little bit of everybody. I want to include math because I want her to be able to maybe share a comment about how literacy affects her class, and that maybe that's what we're going to end up with, the pressing need for the school. But looking at the reading scores, we noticed that out of 364 students tested, 118 were at or above the benchmark. just 118. So we got to look at that and decide, are they just having a bad day? Or are they having problems with reading, with writing, with comprehension? You know, are they actually understanding what they're doing? Are they reading this and actually know what they're reading? Do they fully understand? So that's something that we as teachers and this PLC team need to do, is to find out if that is the case. And that's a good thing to at least have 118, but the bad thing is we have more below the benchmark. So we have 98 students total on watch, we have 78 students on intervention, and we have 70 students on urgent intervention. So that in itself, let me give you the grand total of that. Right now we have 118 students that are at or above our benchmark for STAR testing and reading. And then we have 246 below our benchmark. So we know that way more students are below than above. So now we got to determine what is causing that. So let's think about that, and then let's move to SC Ready scores. And we're looking at past data all the way back to 2011, but we really want to look at last year's testing scores, or last school year's testing scores, and we're going to look at a few things here. So we noticed that 6th grade had a 33% met the English Language Arts section of the SC Ready test, 28.3% in the 7th grade met, and 31% in the 8th grade met. Of course, we can definitely determine that not that many is meeting, and we have got to intervene really quickly with this, and we've got to make a determination. What is causing these students to do so bad? Is it pressure with the test? Is it the fact that they may just not know how to read? Is it the fact that maybe they can read it but they don't comprehend it? Or maybe they have issues with writing? But all that has to do with literacy, in my opinion, and I think all that could come to the conclusion that maybe we're still leaning towards literacy as being our most pressing need. The last thing we're going to look at is our poverty level chart, and the poverty level chart is pretty alarming to me. And when I started analyzing data and gathering data from the lunchroom, I really started thinking more into, wow, this is in Blacksburg. This is where we go to school, or where I went to school. This is where I teach. This is where my family lives. And this is really eye-opening to me, that out of 380 students, 243 are on free lunch, 34 is on reduced lunch, and that makes it 277 students are on free or reduced lunch. That is 72.8% of our students at Blacksburg Middle School qualify for free or reduced lunch, which means 72.8% of our students are in a poverty level that's pretty low. You can even go around and ride around the areas in Blacksburg, and you can look and you can prove this right, that where these students are living it's sad. It really is. And so when you take all this into consideration, don't you think the poverty level has something to do with literacy? You know, what are they hearing at home? Are they hearing anything about how was your day today? Are they hearing things like, you know, you need to go to college? Are they hearing anything like do your homework? Are they hearing things like you could do better? What are your grades? What are you doing in class? What can I help you with? And I think that poverty level affects that, because they're on a different level. Most of those people didn't go to college. Most of them don't have a job. And most of them are living at home with grandparents. Most of them are living at home with aunts and uncles, sisters, brothers, foster children. Some of them are living in children's homes. And that affects them. But poverty level really affects them just as much as who they live with, because maybe the person they're living with don't have a job. So they're not encouraging their student to set high expectations for themselves and to push themselves to a level where they need to be. Because if just the other day in my class, I read a literacy book to our class, and it was on a middle school grade level, and I had several kids that couldn't pronounce most of the words in a sentence. And so that was alarming to me, that maybe we didn't even know what the word was, and I asked them a certain question. I said, let me ask you this question. So when you're reading this book and you are reading a sentence and you get to a word that stumps you, what do you do? And their biggest thing was, we'll skip right over it. I said, is that the right thing to do? Well, that's what I've been told to do. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. And I said, no. I said, what you really need to do is as easy as pulling out a dictionary, something like that, and actually take the time to look the word up and see what it means. And they were like, dictionary? And so I actually passed this around to my students, and I let them look at it. And I said, I want you to find the word. Well, this is too hard. I said, well, back when I was in school, this is what we used. I said, now you have access to Google. You have a spell check on Word. And I said, still, we may not go that extra step to know what the word means. And so when we got done reading and everything was done, most people comprehended, but the mass majority would turn in things that had nothing to do with the story. They just heard that it was called To Catch a Con, and so they thought, well, it was about a con, and they got conned, and that's all they would put about the story. They didn't say anything that led up to the end of it. I said, well, what you've got to do is you've got to take each sentence, and you've got to dissect each sentence, each paragraph, and determine what does this have to do with the next thing that happens to the next thing. And then when you get to the end, you're going to know exactly what the story is about. Maybe you want to predict at the beginning what's the story going to be about. Look at the cover of the book. Pass it around. Can you predict what the story is going to be about? Things like that, simple things like that, concepts they're not getting. And so I think all that relates to this. So if we take a look at this, what is something that points at you that you thought was alarming to you? Is there anything that you see that you may not have noticed or knew?
Poverty level. I knew that we were at a high poverty level.
So the poverty level is something that stuck out at you.
When you see the number on paper, it's a whole lot more than I realized.
Right. 72.8% is a lot of students. That's 277 of our 380 students. And I think that affects literacy overall. And it's not just this class. It's not just ELA class. It's not just reading class. It has got to do with math class. Just like Ms. Harrison teaches math, and it may be as simple as reading a formula. In my keyboarding class, we have a formula on the board that we determine our speed scores each time we take a speed test. And I asked them, I said, if you'll take one score, which is your speed score, plus the accuracy, how accurate was you when you typed the sentence or the paragraph? And I said, we need to determine the average. So I want to divide by 2. The kids were stumped. I lost them at the word average. When I said the word average, they were lost. They didn't know what average meant. I said, okay, so you're taking 2 numbers, you're doing what together? Someone would say subtract. I said, no. So start back over. If you want to get an average, you're going to take 2 numbers and what? Add them together. Okay, good. And then you're going to do what? Speechless. I said, well, if you look at the formula, it says add the 2 together, divide by 2, and they still were lost. Gave them calculators, and they still were lost. So I had to physically help them out, and I don't mind doing that, but it's unfortunate that it is bleeding into all of our content areas. So if you're looking at all of this data, what do you think? Do you think we need to stick with literacy as being our special need to focus on Blacksburg Middle School? Is everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Sure. And are we all in the agreement that I think we can work together to help this?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of strategies that we could do. We mentioned that in the last meeting, some strategies that we could do to improve this. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we could do as a professional learning community team. And I think together we're going to make something happen at Blacksburg Middle School. And hopefully by the next STAR test, we can compare totals, and we're hopefully going to see more at the and above benchmark rather than below. That's my goal. What would everybody's goal be, you think? At least 50-50? Because we're not even 50-50 right now. We're not even 50% at, 50% below. I think that was something we can shoot for. Maybe do a 50-50, 50 at or above, and 50 at below. So we're going to come to the conclusion of that. And what do you think about our SC Ready ELA? If you were to look at 7th grade English, Ms. Bland, what do you think? If it's 28.3, what would your goal be this year?
That's
tough to think about.
45%. improved from 16 to 17.
Right.
But I think as long as we continue to see improvement, I would maybe 40%.
40%?
Would be
Okay.
great, but realistically, maybe 35.
So she's saying, be a good goal at 40, but more realistically, probably 35, and that's up from 28.3%. And Mr. Broom, you teach 8th grade, what do you think about the 31%?
Well, same thing for me. Obviously, we've gone down a percentage, and that really kind of shocked me. And this is only my third year doing it, but I really feel like I have a more capable group of kids.
Right.
And felt like I was more prepared them better, and then they scored below previous class. So it's really kind of a shock to me. But again, if I saw any improvement up to 35% or somewhere in that range, I would be excited about any improvement.
That's a good goal. And so 6th grade was 33%. What y'all think?
I'd like to see either 38 to 40%.
So from 33 to 38 to 40% would be a good increase. And I think we can reach that this year. We just got to work together in content areas and all content areas, and we all need to work together and incorporate it in elective classes. Do all kinds of things that we can do to incorporate literacy to where we will succeed in all content areas. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes, absolutely.
And then, so we're going to think that the most pressing need definitely right now is literacy. So if I had any closing remarks, I just wanted to tell you that I thank you for being here today. And I think that what we went over today was eye-opening, and I think it's something that we can fix. And we have set goals, and I think we can reach them. So thank you so much, and have a great day.